Should be able to hear us now. We should be good to go. If not, let me know.
Nice. Do I need to scoot over? I don't know how.
I think it's just... Sorry, we're trying to get everything...
We're professionals.
Yeah. We don't know what the hell we're doing. So my name is Caden, since you guys didn't hear me. This is Kyle Fields. This is our podcast, Let's Overthink It. Basically, taking your questions, comments, concerns, really anything, and just overthinking it. Yep. We really don't have a basis for what this is about. We might bring a few topics, but truthfully, it's just kind of off the dome in the moment. So
it's like the least thought through thing that we've ever done, which is good, I think.
Yeah, probably. So I think what we ask of y'all that are tuning in live is just to honestly ask questions, comment back, kind of hop in the conversation. Send this to your friends. Bring your friends in here. The more the merrier. It's not really about having a ton of viewers. It's more about interaction with you guys and us.
Yeah, like if we could overthink our way to a solution to a problem you have, that's like the best outcome.
Yeah. And so it's kind of a win-win for y'all, win-win for us, because it goes both ways. I see we've already got a question from my buddy. Oh dear. CZ, which board is better for an extreme snowboarder, a Burton or a surfboard? Well, you shouldn't be riding a Burton. I'll tell you that.
I don't snowboard.
Burton's not my first choice when it comes to snowboard, but I just think there's better brands out there. Maybe I'm wrong. I've only been doing it for...
Is it a preference thing?
I think it's truthfully like a preference thing.
Yeah.
But
not necessarily quality, it's just...
I think the Burton quality is not as good as it used to be.
Is it similar to like comparing skateboards?
Yeah.
And stuff?
Yeah.
Like how... So you could have
different sizes and shapes and materials that are used.
Okay. So like a Burton brand could be better in one particular shape than the other one. Like
I'd say Burton's park boards, like for jumps and rails and stuff, they're probably pretty high up there on the list. But when you get to like an all mountain board or just a normal riding board.
Okay, so it sounds like they're knowing nothing about any of this. It sounds like there's a range enough to where maybe it's, do you know how you want to board, your preference in the board, before you can really say like which one's better, which one's not. And
so going on to that, when I worked at the ski shop, that was something I always, because people were asking me all the time, what board should I get? What board should I get? Well, what kind of riding do you do? How much experience do you have? A lot of people think the board you get is based off your height and your weight, which is completely wrong. Because I could, and in some cases is true. You're not going to have someone who's 5'4" riding a 168. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. So like for me, on my board preference size, I've had, my first board was a 148, which that's in centimeters. I had a 150, I have a 154 currently. I have a 158 mid-wide, and I have a 163 that I'll never ride. It's just a trash board that looked really cool. I'm gonna make it into a bench, but truthfully, like, so say if I'm, somebody's asked me, okay, yeah, I want this board. Well, are you a park rider? No, I just like to stay on the greens and kind of take it easy. Okay, then that's not the board for you. Because that's going to be a more aggressive board. It's going to have more flex in it. There's so many different things that add up. So, like, I don't necessarily think there's one brand or the other that's better at something. Or better in general. I think it's just like they have their single thing that they're really good at. So, and it's funny too, like, there's not a lot of people that have that knowledge that say they do when you go into a ski shop. And you end up getting screwed over because they're just trying to make a sell on the board. And so I saw that happen a couple times, and even I've been that guy before when but I knew what I was talking about, but they didn't. I was like, okay, you just need to buy this board, you know?
Yeah. There's value in knowing what you're looking for in anything.
I think pre-research is like something good a lot of people should do. Not just if you're going snowboarding, but in general. I think you should always have some kind of pre-knowledge on what you're doing.
Your own research. Because like you don't want to confuse like that question and your preference being research. Because it's not really research. I mean, it's worth, you have valuable opinion on something, and it's worth like getting that opinion. But there's also like individual research where you go to a source and find why something is more in line with what you want.
And so like in that state, like if you're looking for something, say you're looking at water bottles, for instance, like you got Hydro Flask, you have Stanley, which one, you know, doing your preference, picking your preference beforehand. Okay, this one stays colder for this amount of time longer. And I feel like if more people did that on a daily basis with just what they're doing in their daily life, I feel like we'd have such an easygoing world. Because I feel like people make things too complicated, choosing between one thing or the other.
Oh yeah, they make it complicated enough to where they like don't make a decision, and that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Even if you make like the wrong decision, it's still better than making no decision.
Yeah. Because at least you're moving forward in one way or the other. I guess that's where that, like, the complexity of choice comes in. Because choice is such a, like a balloon. Like, it'll balloon out. There's so many choices you make every day. You know, did you choose to wash your hands after you went to the bathroom? Did you choose to make your bed when you got up? Did you choose to have a cup of coffee this morning? Like, I wonder if you could calculate how many choices you make a day. Or decisions.
Yeah, well, you can, because we're the sums of our decisions.
Very true.
So, like, where we are right now is because of all of our decisions in some way. There were decisions that I made that led to results that led to me having a personality that is more open to, hey, do you want to do a podcast? Sure. I'll put myself out there.
Yeah.
You know, like, but that's only because of a series of events.
Oh, yeah. And that discussion that we had for so long about doing this. And we made that choice to keep having the discussion. But we didn't act on the discussion for so long.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we had this plan, but we couldn't put it to fruition. No, that's not the right word.
So we had to discuss through all of the concerns and like politics and dynamics and like what could happen from it. What do we even want to happen from it? And like we had to discuss all that before we were able to simplify it down to like, we just want to throw out authentic whatever.
Yeah.
And if it's like a 2 viewer thing, whatever, cool. But putting out overthought answers in a positive way without that like spiral of like negativity is, you know, knowing that's possible as people who overthink things, that's like really powerful. You can like lean into that a bit.
Yeah.
So even just introducing that to anybody,
The intentionality
is a
behind
worthwhile,
it.
yeah, that's a worthwhile pursuit.
I just think it's cool because a year ago, a little over a year ago, we didn't even really know each other.
Yeah.
And now we're like podcasts, and I just think it's cool how you make a connection. You connect off a couple things that you have in common, which I feel like you and I have.
And a lot of that is like connecting on struggles.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, I know what it's like to lose sleep over made up scenarios.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh yeah, me too. That sucks.
You're just sitting in bed. You're like, why did I do this to myself?
And then it's like one suggestion of like, man, like feeling like you have that initial conversation or like that you click, and then now you feel more able to express like, hey, here's something I did the other night and it helped me with this. And you're like, okay, sharing advice, and now we're not losing sleep over overthought things. We're able to like accept them better, and it's like better quality of life.
It's like a game of tennis. It just goes back and forth. The ball's always going one way or the other.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets past you. You got to restart. I don't know. I feel, and so last night it was kind of funny. We're sitting at our home church, and I just felt something like, and this made me think about, you know, for this morning and stuff. When you're in an argument with your significant other or a person, or not even an argument, just you're flustered, like you feel
There's friction.
Yeah, there's some kind of friction. Don't let it last long, was what they kept saying. Don't let it last long.
Yeah.
Like, whether that's, okay, I'm wrong, throw in the towel, ask for forgiveness, like whatever it possibly is, don't let it last long. And I felt that was so powerful.
Yeah.
Because you can take that and block that off. And like you said, that one time, you can put it over here, you can put it over here, or you can put it in your pocket. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like that's something that you keep in your pocket, just for those times when like you're in an argument.
Well, there's like healthy approaches to things, and like there's a difference between just throwing your hands up and saying, okay, I'm wrong, whatever, like for the sake of ending an argument, but then like versus actually handling the conflict and doing it efficiently and like cutting it off. Like, sure, we definitely want to like stop a fire before it turns into a wildfire, but like we want to do it in a way where we're not leaving little ashes that when we're done, like this thing is just going to spark up later. There's a way to do it the right way, and you have to learn that kind of by doing. But there's a healthy way.
There's such a healthy way.
And
I love that.
And yeah, and just that train of thought, like you can apply it to different areas and different problems and stuff like that. But I think the biggest difference is like, are you ignoring, suppressing, or actually handling it? And the actually handling it part is where, because now the next time you handle another conflict, there's not like the ash from before. Like you don't also have to have this like mess of something sitting there underlying the environment and the sense of this whole thing. It's a clean slate, new issue. You can handle it appropriately.
I like that. That clean slate means a lot, though, to some people.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle must have learned everything he knows from his wife.
Yeah. You seem pretty cute. User 327564.
So what do you guys think our purpose in life is? That's a loaded question, but it's such a simple answer.
Yeah.
If you want me, I'll let you go first on this one.
There's millions of levels to it, like purposes to subcategories in life. Like my wife, for example, like, you know, providing for my wife and our family, and we have 3 little girls, and those are all extensions of my wife, and like being caught up in moments of just like pure joy and bliss, and being able to be like take this perspective of like seeing it kind of all in real time, like, man, this is like my family, that's what it's about, right? But like there's other elements of like real world dynamics that have to be factored into that, and so it's like, what's the purpose of life? That could vary day to day, moment to moment. Like, what's the purpose of this conversation right now, and what's the purpose of like my 10 o'clock meeting? You know, it's different purposes. But
I think I find like the purpose in life, and this is something actually Soul kind of always reiterates to me, but just be a good person.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is, love God, be a good person. Those are the two main points.
Love people.
Yeah. 2 main points, and then everything else is like circles, and it revolves.
I see it like a big garden. You want to care for the seeds. You want to care for, you want to create this environment where you can confidently know like the water that the water you're using is going where it needs to go. It's reaching the roots, even though you don't get to see that actually happen. You know that it's on top. You know, it's like a faith element, but just stewarding good. Like, if water is good, and we're gardeners, just taking the opportunity to put good out there and expressing how that works. Like, if the compound effect of like being a good father, being good parents, Cassie and I, and showing what good looks like, and how to take advantage of those, our daughters are going to grow up in an environment where they're going to default to wanting to spread good, and then that's going to extend, and
To their
hopefully it
kid.
is impactful. And then now you have this garden and these rivers of good. Like I think our purpose is to spread good however we can, and to maintain and sustain a position in order to be the gardener.
Being the gardener is so important.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good way to look at it on, like, wide angle look, fisheye view.
Yeah.
That's such a good way to actually put it. Because I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to make it something it's not, like what life is. And life is really so simple. There's going to be complicated things within life, but that doesn't mean that life is complicated. It means that you hit a spot where it was complicated and you keep moving on.
And one of my favorite quotes is something along the lines of like, life is simple, it's just difficult to be simple, which is true, because we all want to like overcomplex things and like find like secret sauces that don't exist. Like no, there's nothing new. You know, like there's just the simplicity of doing things, and then the ability to, it's not reshaping how something's structured. It's being consistent in being diligent of like eliminating distractions and ignoring distractions and not being distracted and pursuing with intent and like efficiency toward an objective that's aligned with good, you know?
Yeah.
And I think people get too often, they get distracted by all those disruptions to where now it's like, you know, we're impressed by the way people do things efficiently because the commonality or like the common, how common it is for us to get distracted. Everybody gets distracted. So when we're not, like we put that on a pedestal and we're like, oh, look at all these successful people. It's because they don't get distracted.
Yeah.
That's really what we need to do.
I'm probably the worst at getting distracted. And I don't think a lot of the time it's like a serious distraction. I think it's more just like I'm always like searching for something. I don't know what it is.
There's probably never a serious distraction.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because if something were serious enough to be a serious distraction, it should be a priority already.
Yeah. Exactly. And
when it's a priority, it's not a distraction because you need to focus on it.
Yeah. It's kind of mind-boggling to think, though. Sometimes, like, I'll find myself walking around talking to people, and I'm like, probably should be making calls. But it's like, maybe I needed that in that moment.
Yeah.
And we talk about that a lot, because I don't give myself grace. I might be the worst person on the planet about that. I want to take my own head off 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I bet way more people are like that than you think.
Probably.
More people probably think that they're unique in how much they hate on themselves, and they don't realize how much they hate on themselves, when actually I think human default is to like hate on ourselves just because it's easy to do.
Yeah.
Because like, who are we to have good stuff happen, or who are we to be awesome?
Yeah.
No, it can't be. So we just make up these scenarios in our head.
Definitely. I think I struggle with that probably most like on a relationship standpoint. And this is going to get, I feel like it's going to get a little vulnerable, but like,
That's what this is for.
that's what it's for. Like, feeling like last night sitting at a home church, I felt some conviction on some ways that maybe I had talked to Hallie, my girlfriend, or I had maybe said something and I didn't mean it that way, but it came off a certain way.
Yeah.
You know? And like my intentionality with words, instead of being like, no, you do this, be like, hey, maybe take a step back, maybe just try to do something else, or like, you know, coming at arguments or at conversations or at topics at a different angle with your words. And that was so strong to me because I've never like actually thought about that, like what my words can do. If I say, you should do this, instead of, hey, can you help me do this? Or like, hey, do you think you could do this real quick for me? Like, there's so much power between that one and that one, because that one is like, okay, I'm being intentional with you. I want you to feel that I need your help right now, but I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just asking you.
Yeah. I think being intentional is like you can be more effectively intentional, the better you know the situation. And so like that leads to like the way you give advice and suggestions is important. Because I think if we've gone through something similar and I had success in a way that I handled it, that's not necessarily the answer to your problem, because it could just be different enough to have require a different solution. But if I'm so steadfast in like my suggestion and the way that I handled it, that I can't accept that you might need a different solution or it might not work out for you, then I'm not actually helping you find a solution outside of like eliminating other, and like we don't want to find solutions through only process of elimination, because we'll spend our whole lives trying to solve one problem. But if we can approach that suggestion, like you were saying, in like provoking the thoughts or getting them on the thought process that leads them to a way that they can assess the situation and apply it with, you know, a strategy with intention, then now we've released ourselves from the expectations of like, you have to follow through on our suggestions. And then like we feel some type of way when that doesn't happen. Now there's that weird friction. But instead of having those expectations, we can enjoy or observe like if you're finding a solution. And if we're tribe enough together, you know, if we're in this together enough, then you should feel comfortable enough coming to me with status updates of like, oh, this is working, or like, man, that's just not like, how do I get back in that thought process?
And like that's true communication too.
Yeah.
Like having a valid, thorough communication with somebody, being able to be like, yeah, I'm struggling right now. Do you have any ways that could help me? And that could be to your significant other, a friend, a spiritual father, literally anybody that you feel. Just speak with your words. Like be so truthful when you speak with your words that there's no type of doubt that could come out of it. And they're like, okay, I see that either you're struggling or that you maybe need a little guidance in this spot and not this spot. So let me help you here, so because I know you're going to thrive here. Yeah. It's like that two-way street.
Yeah.
It's good.
So let's say like, okay, this sparked something, like we learned something just now, right? And we want to go out there and we want to apply it. The first learning curve of that, or like hurdle or frustration, is like the expectancy of the receiver who we're trying to do that with to receive it the way that we like. We have this newfound thought. It's this ideal of a thought, and we want it to be executed ideally too. But we have to understand there's another human there too. Yeah. And so like something like with my wife and I, that I had to improve on, that I didn't even really realize until she told me, was about like, I don't have the best reaction to things that she starts to say. I kind of, and I'm getting better at it, but I would get defensive, you know, more so defensive, or kind of have my ideal on something and really try to convert her side of it to like, hey, you're thinking wrong, or whatever. And that has its place sometimes if you're combating negativity, but like, if someone's sharing their feelings, they're allowed to feel that way. And they're explaining the interpretation of whatever scenario and clearing up assumptions of, if I let her finish through, like now the assumptions I had, like I have a clear picture of everything and I can better like either suggest or listen or go from there. But as the receiver, if like I have to understand my limitations, because there's going to be a response to like how we approach this. So that's like the second step. But I need to understand, like if I'm about to have a conversation with someone who I've had other conversations with, but now I have a different approach, they're still going to have like the conditioning of how I've had those other conversations. So I need to acknowledge without defense, like, okay, you're right, maybe I have handled these wrongs. And that's if you're having the conversation. Yeah. If they don't bring up, hey, you got two defenses, all these things, you're still combating those. But you have to understand, like, there are limiters over there, and trying to talk over that, not to let that discourage you, but to be authentic in recognizing, like, I have a new way that I have to show a pattern of for you to fully grasp. And so there's probably an expectation of, like, limited vulnerability at first, because we want to take this new idea, apply it, and be super vulnerable and have progress, where this might be 60-day type of thing where we have to be intentional on like showing, hey, I'm listening, like we're doing it right. Instead of pushing, and we have to make sure that we're consistent in that and not defaulting to the comfort of how we used to do it. Because habits are hard to break, especially the habits we didn't even know we had.
And it's funny, like, people are so quick to talk, but it says be quick to listen.
Yeah, we need to listen more, for sure. I definitely need to actually listen more.
I'm terrible at that.
Because I used to listen halfway and then get my response ready. And then the second half of it, I'm just focused on my response. And I've missed like an element that actually is like...
It just took your whole thing.
Yeah, like, hold on, let me finish, and you'll see that I've made the same conclusion you did, plus whatever.
Chris said, Kyle, I saw your comment on my Facebook post, David and Goliath. Give me 3 must-reads.
Oh, okay. David, that aren't on that, so that stack of books was really good. David and Goliath is a really, really good one. Tribe of Millionaires is a really, really good one. And I don't know, was Poverty, Riches, and Wealth on there? Those would be like my top of the head 3. The authors I'm spacing on. But David and Goliath, that's a really, really good one.
12 Mighty Orphans is a great book.
I need to read that.
It's not really much of like it's inspiring through the story of the book, but it's not like your book where you're reading to get motivation for something. Like, it's just like a very heartfelt story.
The Alchemist is a good one too. I really like that.
I've heard about that, but I've never read that. Are you listening to respond, or are you listening to hear the other person? That's really good. I think, too, when we were talking about like our habits, like our habits in life, those are so big. And like when we sat there the other day and kind of went through some of my habits, that was really cool because, you know, anytime I've ever written down my bad habits, or I've looked and seen what my bad habits are, I'm looking and I'm writing them in such a negative way. Like, I need to stop doing this. I need to stop doing this. And you flipped the whole script on me the other day. And that was so eye-opening because the way you flipped it on me was like, okay, now we're going to speak positive into these things.
Same exact things.
Same exact thing, but instead of speaking negatively, I am going to tie my shoe every morning or whatever. I am going to make my bed every morning. Like, instead of, I need to make my bed every morning, or I don't make my bed every morning.
Yeah, because what you're putting out there, like, if you simplify the phrases, like if you're somebody who's into like law of attraction, you put out, you get, whatever. Like, if you're putting out, I scroll too much. Simplified version is scrolling too much. That's going to come back in scrolling too much. But if you say, like, instead of my bad habits, my improving habits, scrolling less. Now, scrolling less is out there. Less scrolling.
Yeah.
Less scrolling. And now that kind of builds on itself. And same exact scenario, different perspective, and it's putting out the right things. And now there's also this element of, like, if you're like, these are my 3 worst traits or habits. By nature, you have to have 3 worst traits.
Yeah.
Even if they're better than everybody else's traits in the world, they would be everybody else's top 3. You have to have a bottom 3. There's always going to be a hierarchy, right? Yeah. And so there comes a point where you're like, okay, these are my worst 3. I want to improve on them. What's the point of improving on these if I'm going to have like 3 other worst traits? And you can argue like, yeah, you'll improve, blah, 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 but there's like this discouraging factor in why improve this if there's going to be 3 in that spot anyway. But if you just say, hey, these are my improving traits, I have a whole bunch of traits, these are the ones that are improving, then there's no reason to not improve those, because it's just, the whole concept is just improvement.
Well, and too, like, we're made, no matter how you want to take this, how you like it or not, God made us to evolve.
Yeah.
And it's weird, he also made the planet to evolve.
Yeah.
I'm looking, Sol and I went to go camp this weekend. We're sitting there, we're down by the water in the morning, and there was this cool little rock that was just kind of like, the rest of it was underwater, but we were sitting on it, and it was, I don't know, maybe as big as this table, or 2 of them. But and I don't know why this just came to mind, but you could tell that this, like, because you'd stick your feet in it, and we didn't have shoes on, and it would come off on the bottom of your feet. It's like a sediment rock, right? Well, you see how this water trail, and you can see it from all these different rocks, has come down, and right in the middle of this rock, because I mean the water's like right here, here's the rock, and it'll come back over this little ledge. Well, there's like a little like spout where the water has just slowly, that rock has evolved to not let the water sit on the rock, but to just flow right into the lake. And that's us with life. There's going to be things where, you know, we're doing something wrong for so long, and you won't even realize that you switched just because naturally you're molding. And I think that is so cool that we can just naturally mold sometimes without even knowing.
Well, yeah, but it's the not even knowing that gets scary, though, because then it's the subconscious, it's the defaulting to the unaware decisions that we're just defaulting to. And we're, by nature, we want to affirm ourselves. Like we want, the reason people can assume things is, or the reason like sales works because sometimes people want to assume stuff that is to your benefit as a salesman. So you're like, I'm just going to let them assume that, whether it be true or not. Like, and they'll affirm it to themselves as fact. People like to think their assumptions are fact. So if we do that like internally and we go back to like less scrolling, we're going to want to affirm and confirm less scrolling. If we identify someone who scrolls less, we're going to start like compounding that. And when we get into that habit, that becomes subconscious. So now we're focused on the positive side of what we're trying to improve instead of affirming the negative. I scroll too much. Well, I need to affirm that because I identify as someone who scrolls too much. But not even knowing that, and now you're grabbing your phone and you're scrolling too much because that was a subconscious decision that we're either evolving with or not. We're going to evolve regardless. The way we evolve is either it's going to make or break. It's going to be relying on the positive or negative approach.
That's good. Stop banning my name, man. What is he talking about? Well, we're talking about a little bit of everything, man. If it's something if there's something on your mind or a topic that you have, you're curious about, ask away. That's what this is for. We're here to be completely transparent. We're two overthinking guys that just want to talk to each other because we do this on a daily, but we figured why not include people from around the world that come to the live and want to ask us questions.
And don't assume we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, because we have no idea.
Most of it's just rambling, I think.
Yeah, and we find some kind of grounding to that we're able to ramble and find some kind of connection or I don't know, solution to a problem.
Or not. Like finding comfort in like, oh, you don't know an answer either? Yeah. Okay, well, there's a level of comfort in knowing like people put thought to something and still couldn't find a solution, kind of highlighting like, hey, this isn't easy for everybody. We go back to that negative mindset of like, oh, we suck at this and the whole world's awesome at it. Yeah. Where it's like, man, if we could get you pick some other people out in the world and they're like, oh, I can't think of it either. It's like, okay, maybe that's a harder concept than you give yourself credit for.
And I think too, just like we like to learn. We're two guys, we like to learn new things.
So we're open to
learning new things, but open to improving where we're at now as well. Like if you never know, something you might have a question about might affect me in my heart and be like, oh wow, I needed to hear that. So really, like, we want you guys to ask questions and talk to us, bounce back and forth ideas, because that's the reason we're getting on here is so that maybe you might hear something that helps you, or we might hear something that helps us. And if it doesn't help us, we're still going to sit here and talk about it and maybe try to help you.
Or talk about something.
Yeah. Like it's so deep any which way you go about it. As an overthinker, how do you keep yourself present as much as possible and away from the what ifs?
Ooh, what if they're so slippery?
That's very slippery.
I like to do this thing when I find that I'm falling into too much of a hole in the overthinking. And it depends on what I'm overthinking. Because sometimes you get in a good zone of creativity and you can get really artsy with it. And like overthinking, like we've been saying, can be positive. But when I need to snap back into reality, let's say like bills and stuff, things that are still, they seem close, they seem like they're like overbearing on us, like this tidal wave is coming, but like we still have days, we have hours and hours, 192 hours left until this bill is due, and if you miss the bill, they don't just take your house, you know, like it's not like the next day you're just like, where'd my house go? And so like there's a rational thought to like these fears that we have, but there's a habit in kind of understanding that. But to keep myself from getting too far ahead and thinking like the whole world's going to crumble in 30 days and putting myself on day 31, what's going on? Like if I'm driving, it sounds odd, but I'll feel like the curves of my steering wheel, like the uniqueness, like the stitching on it or whatever. Or if I'm in the office, I'll feel the lining of my pants, like something that is here in reality that brings me back to like today, and then I'll just remind myself like I can take a breath. Like I have an opportunity to take a breath, and you know, more of my struggle is like with ADHD, my inability to, like in my office it's easy to snap back into reality. When I'm at home and I'm you know, the overstimulus, you know, and I'm just girls. Like, all in my head. Like I'm working on that. That's an element that I'm still improving on. But to snap back into reality when I can, and even at times like at home, I'll have to go into the bedroom, and I'll sit on the floor sometimes and feel the carpet. Like feeling something in reality is the suggestion here. It's
kind of like people saying, back. Go touch grass.
Yeah, and it reminds you like, man, how do you eat enough? Like one bite at a time. When you snap back to something when you were a year, 30 days, however far ahead and or however deep in this overthought process, trying to figure out why someone is, you know, blocking you and not answering doing all of these things, posting here, all of these things, and trying to get all these answers. Snap back to reality, and you just like, dude, build the wall in front of you. What's the next step?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, what's impacting me right now? Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe I need to eat. Maybe life's not so bad.
And you can turn those what ifs into, like, a lot of people will be like, well, what if I can't pay this bill? Well, that should give you some motivation to be like, what can I do? Like, where can I change this to change that?
Yeah.
Like, it should give you some kind of, and that's my personal thought, like, I struggle with this with my girlfriend, our buts.
Yeah.
Hey, you're doing this, but I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I've tried so hard, and that's something I still struggle with, is taking but out of my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Because in some cases, yes, it's very good. Hey, I want you to come here, but I need you to wait 15 minutes because you might have a surprise going on. Whatever. But if you're like in an argument and you're using the word but to, hey, you did this, and this really affected me, but I did this because you did that.
Yeah, I think it's more like not so much saying, hey, you did this, but I did this, because I think that has its place. It's fair, because sometimes we don't recognize what their side did carry. We feel like we carried 80%, and then they're like, hey, I also did this, and sometimes I do this so well that you don't even notice that it's being done. Like, Cassie keeps the house, like, I probably have it better than most, right? That happens every day. And there are little intricacies of her doing that every day that I don't notice because I come home and nothing's different. Yeah. Because it's clean and it's good. But to make sure nothing's different, that has to get sustained. And like recognizing sometimes helps balance that. So that is fair. Where I think it gets like wrong is if I apologize to you, but then I add a caveat. Hey, I'm sorry, but you were kind of mean. Like, then you're not sorry. Yeah. Because you're saying why you think you're justified in what you did, so you're not sorry. And there really needs to be like a definitive period to the I'm sorry. And if you're not sorry, don't be sorry. And don't say you're sorry. And don't just like throw it up for the sake of, and that's different than, you don't have to be right. Saying sorry and being right don't contradict each other. You can be right and say sorry, all those kind of things. I'm improving on that, is the caveats. Because I feel like I justify too much when if I am really sorry, you know?
Yeah. This is one thing too, and this is, I feel like this has really helped me out when I know I'm wrong and I've done something wrong. For instance, you know, we were chatting the other day and I said something that kind of set her off because I said it in a tone that, you know, I didn't think it was that meaning, but it was that meaning to her. And so we go through and, you know, we start to argue a little bit, whatever, get past it. I call her, hey, I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for this. And then I said, and I'm not sorry for loving you this much that I get flustered about it. My 2 sorries and my 1 I'm not sorry. And I don't know why that happened, but I felt like I needed to say it that way. I'm sorry for these 2 things, and I'm not sorry for this. Because I'm passionate about this certain thing I'm not sorry about, I'm passionate about. Yeah. These 2 things I'm not that passionate about.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might be, but your I'm not sorry needs to be the most important thing, I think. And that's just the way I go about it.
Yeah.
And it's worked. I feel that we don't let it last. We get to a quicker close.
Yeah.
On what we were chatting about. We both understand at this point. She sees how I feel. I see how she feels. And I'll use that in if I'm in an argument or if I'm in a serious conversation. For this, you know, I'm sorry that maybe the camera's not working right. I'm sorry that maybe the mics aren't working right. But I'm not sorry that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that's where that but comes in, where I get a little like, should I say I'm not sorry first, but I am sorry for these things? Like the way you arrange it, I've been struggling with that. Should I arrange I'm not sorry first, but I am sorry about these things? Like,
it might not even be the arrangement of it. It might be more of eliminating one of the sides, right? Like if I'm reacting a certain type of way and then I feel bad about it, and we're not justifying it by like, but I love you so much, but we're saying it, right? Like we're like, hey, but I'm not sorry for loving you so much. Kind of saying like, this is a result of me loving you. Like these bad things, this overreaction is a result of how much love for you. And so like those mirror each other, and we're kind of like, we want them to know like we love them and we want them to know they're loved. But just, I kind of lost my train of thought, and just like, oh yeah, it's ADHD popping up. Eliminating one of those sides is, instead of focusing on how those mirror each other, you need to focus on how to react different with that love. Like knowing you love them so much, and that it adds fuel to chaos, drama, whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, how do we handle this stuff more? How do we get into a situation where we don't have to feel bad and equate it to how much we love them? Instead, we learn how to control the emotions or whatever it takes to eliminate the overreaction that led to us feeling bad. If there's no overreaction and we process things better or have better line of communication, now we don't have anything to be sorry for, and then we don't have anything to say why it happened. Because if we love somebody so much and we're saying this is the overreaction, the next comparison in my head would be, do you love them enough to solve that problem? To like intentionally say, I need to get into the habit of stopping, thinking, assessing. And if my love is truly so big, I should be overwhelmed with the sense that I need to make that a priority. And then when it's a priority and I follow through with it, I resolve these overblown reactions. But if I'm saying these reactions are because I love you so much, then we're not trying to fix that. We're saying, but I don't love you enough to prioritize the solution. So do we, then you have to question, am I in love with them or am I in love with the situation that we're in and the benefits that come with them and their role in our situation?
Dang, dude. Dang.
See?
Yeah. No, and I'll be honest, like I've kind of been overthinking like the way maybe I said that or the way I've thought about that, but that just gave me like some true insight.
It's like, why did you say it?
Yeah.
And how do you combat saying those things in the future? And I've been victim to saying things that I still eat me up to my wife, you know, like this heat of the moment arguments and stuff that I'm like, man, I would go off on somebody who says that to my wife, you know, like if someone talked to her, oh, dude. And there's even versions of me today that I'm not happy with it, human nature. And I'm not saying that's we're always improving, and I'm always trying to improve, especially on my marriage, and just kind of loving her enough to find the solutions and apply them and fix them. It's comforting to have her say, like, you've been better, even if it's just like recently or whatever. And then it kind of builds on itself. But yeah,
my girlfriend said it's always out of love.
oh yeah, but things are also out of comfort too, from things that we've interpreted as how we grew up learning what love was.
Yeah.
Because if love to us is like, you know, arguing parents or like continuous like confliction or you know, this inability to accept the end of a conversation or that you're wrong or having the last word, like if we look at that as love and we're in a relationship and we're supposed to be in love with somebody, you know, we're portraying what we think is love, but it's not. Sometimes it's comfort in going back.
Yeah.
Because I saw this interesting like little reel about being uncomfortable when you are being loved because you're not used to it. And you're like, that's not love to me. I don't deserve this. So you start sabotaging it, doing things, being shysty, shady, testing the love. And then now you're also testing someone's ability to stay with somebody who did them dirty. And you don't want to be with somebody who doesn't have the backbone to say no to that and walk away. But you don't want to walk away because this was a blip of a test and they're just not used to being loved. So then they go back to something toxic because that's what they're used to. And it's all out of love, but it's not real love. Love should be like transforming. If you love somebody, I'm so different because I love my wife so much. Like I loved her, I love her, but I've loved her so much throughout our relationship that the things that weren't appealing to her about me, I wanted to fix, that were actually right. You know, I didn't want to just be somebody for the sake of being with my wife. I wanted to be the person that she deserved. And I recognized things that she didn't even say I needed to improve on, but I needed to improve on because a woman of her caliber deserves to have a guy of that caliber. And that I love her so much that the focus was, what do I need to do to secure her in my life and also provide what she deserves? And that whole shift was like,
but that's like it's not rough, but it's when you feel that love for somebody and you know you feel that love for somebody, it's so strong.
It's strong.
Because like in my case, I can, and I know this, it sounds like the Disney story or whatever, but the first time that I saw Hallie, I didn't even know her yet. And I was like, I love that girl. Like I love her.
Yeah. It was like a huge level of intrigue.
Yeah. And I can tell you, second week in June 2021, I was at Pure Water in Canyon, Texas, going to see my buddy there. And she was working in the back. And I was like, I love her. That's mine. And come to find out, I end up working there. Come to find out, we end up together. And it all worked out. But it's weird when you feel real, true love for somebody, and you would do anything, no matter what.
Well, there's a whole other layer too, and I'm speaking 10 years ahead of you, in like having that, like, I'll do anything for you for somebody, even after seeing true colors, how they are at their rock bottom, like all of the things. And then also to be willing to accept, like, you're willing to stay by my side after seeing me at my rock bottom and me at like the things when my demons came out, you know, like there's tests of love and stuff that are so powerful and all that too.
I think we fall under that category because the both of us have seen each other at rock bottom, and maybe a young rock bottom because we're still young, but we both have seen that, and we both have prevailed from that, and I think that's really cool, like that we were able to prevail from those moments. And
what's important is, like, you've talked about how much you've changed from, because this isn't the first time you guys have dated.
No.
And so, in the last time, you've highlighted some reasons why and some personal qualities of yourself that you've improved on. And that leads to this whole, like back to me too, like things that I wanted to improve on to meet the level of who I felt deserved the quality of, like, my wife and now our family. And there's this wall of embarrassment and wall of, like, somewhat regret, and, like, you have to accept all of your flaws, and you have to accept flaws that you don't want to accept, and you have to accept, like, your perspective and, like, things that maybe you've grown up on aren't the norm and are toxic to a degree. Like, you really have to assess a lot of these things to know, like I said, I had this thing, a word come to me this morning in Bible study about, or the phrase, and it was, to clean the graffiti, you have to know where to scrub. And so you have to know, like, what am I trying to improve? Where am I trying to, if I'm trying to get stronger, why am I running 12 miles a day? Like, you have to know where to scrub. And just there's a lot of embarrassment in that when you're like, oh, dude, I do too much of this, or to be able to say, like, man, I can't have more than 2 drinks, and to be able to admit, like, I can't control myself after I have 1 drink. Like, I can't just have 2 drinks. Like, there's a difference between knowing I can only have 2 drinks and controlling yourself to only have 2 drinks. Like, there are all of these levels to it, and it's kind of embarrassing when people are like, oh, you can't. We think they're going to be like, oh, you can't control yourself, when they probably get more vulnerable in admitting things that they can't control either. Or like, oh yeah, dude, I actually kind of have a problem with that too. Would you rather get coffee?
Yeah.
Like,
it's the solution to the problem.
Yeah,
right
but
there.
we feel like it's more embarrassing than it will be, and, like, accepting that we didn't do it right, and then the opportunity cost of if we had done it right. Like, oh, dang, I wish I would have saved better the last 10 years. Like, okay, reality is, like, we didn't. And so that's embarrassing, but now you fix it. We're scrubbing that graffiti.
Was it only based on looks that you loved her, and at the time when you first saw her? So no, obviously she's beautiful. I mean, that wasn't hard for me to notice. The first 2 things I, like, always look for, like, in a person, I look at their smile, because I think a smile is very inviting. If you smile at someone, I'm very outgoing, so I'll talk to anybody. If they smile at me, I'm going to talk to them. I don't know why that is. But it was, like, her smile, and then, like, there was always music going there, so, like, she's, like, back there, like, doing her little dance or whatever, and she does this funny little thing with her shoulders like this. And it's so funny because I do the same thing. Like, whenever we're in the car together, we'll just, like, catch each other, just, like, listening to music, doing that. And it's so funny because I'm like, that's why. Because I know she's goofy. I can just tell, like, she has a fun personality, she's goofy. That's what I want. And I think that was so, like, comforting to see somebody that kind of put off the vibes that I would want to see.
Well, it's indescribable. Like, I had a really similar experience with my wife the first time I saw her. I was bartending. She came in to the venue, bright pink shirt, like, platinum blonde hair, everything else just went black and white, and I was just like, who is this girl? Never felt this way before, you know, wasn't dating, you know, I was pretty against dating and stuff at the time, like just having a good time in college, and I was like, so like finding reasons to like go by, right? Like, and there's obviously like, yeah, bombshell, babe, like there's a physical attraction there, but it's beyond that in the sense of
like, I actually want to get to know her.
Like, just curiosity, like, who is that? Yeah, like, I want to know who that is for whatever reason, and it was even more curious because I've never felt that. I've never wanted to know who someone was like that, you know, without even knowing them. And it's just weird how that works, and that I think there probably is, like, a human nature element of, like, attraction. And
that's normal, though.
Well, yeah, but until you can explain to me thoroughly how the waves of Wi-Fi work,
yeah,
I can chalk up waves of love or vibrations or destiny or the Holy Spirit, you know, all of these things that play into, you know, this unforeseen, you know, all of these things that we don't see now. And there has to be something there that is, like, for me, in my case, paranormally real, you know, just so solid in like conviction. And the craziest part about it was I didn't even reach out to her. She messaged me on Facebook asking it when I was working again, all this kind of stuff, if I could go out there. I was like, heck yeah, dude.
That's awesome.
Dude, that would have been horrible if I never even.
Oh. And she, like, with me, she played so hard to get. So I, like, was like, because then I started working there.
Yeah.
Like,
that's an interesting game, too.
And that was, like, kind of my intent.
Yeah.
Like, I started working there because I was like, I don't know, maybe I can get closer. And then, like, as I start working there, like, she's working this other job at the pool. She only works there on Sundays. Well, I happen to be scheduled on Sundays. And she only works Sundays there. And so, like, slowly we just like became really good friends, and I was so happy when we became friends. But as we became friends, one day it clicked and we both just like meshed, and it was on a Sunday, and we had one other person working with us. His name was Ruben, and he might have been so annoyed with us that we didn't want to leave each other alone, and we knew that this was going to go somewhere. Like, we did not want to leave each other alone.
But then it didn't, right? Like, I mean, it's going somewhere now, but then it did,
It did. We dated for the 8 months. Things happened. Relationship didn't work out at first. But I truthfully credit that to us not being mature enough and not having a true, like, visual mindset of where we wanted to go with it. Because we really didn't know where we wanted to go. We were just dating and living together.
It's important to highlight, like, the progress and the personal development there, because I think there's like this, again, human nature element of like we want to look back on our memories and stuff and pick out all the good things, but then we also want to say that we were young and naive, and so to say like we knew we'd be together forever or there, and like to speak on it at a point where you're in a relationship, like, wow, that's powerful, but at the same time it's like middle schoolers are saying that, everybody's saying that, so it's hard to. What we don't want, like, in giving advice is the not false narrative, like the miscorrelation of, like, when you feel this, like, you'll know when you know. Because sometimes we think we know and we're so wrong.
Yeah.
And then we want to know so bad. But then we, like, force it to, like, hey, this has to work. When now you guys are dating who you guys are now, and it's working out better. Yeah. And luckily you guys have that past to like reflect on and like use that as an initial icebreaker of like rekindling whatever. But the importance is the continuous dating of two people who are also still changing and progressing and change, you know, like I'm not sure you would want to, if you met somebody today and they were just like, we're going to be together forever, I'm not sure you would want that. As much as like when you're 18, you're like, yeah we will. Yeah. You know, like that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, like I'll be honest with you, like I asked her to be my girlfriend 2 days after we hit it off like that. Because I was like, I got it. I'm in love. This is it. We're going to be together forever. Yeah. And we weren't. And we struggled. We went through struggles. We went through hard times. We fought through some hard times. We didn't fight through some hard times. Yeah. Some of them just simmered. And ultimately, things built up to the point where we even discussed this last night. We were both emotionally done, but in our hearts, we still loved each other. We went away. We were together or separate for a year. Now we're back. And there's so much difference in our maturity and the way we act and the way we go about situations, and how instead of screaming at each other and getting so angry at each other about things, we're sitting there, okay, we just argued. Why did we argue? Usually, then we would have argued and just kept talking about it. Now we're like, okay, what?
We probably don't need to.
What was that all about?
When you vocalize things and bring to reality how silly something actually was, it curves itself pretty good. You don't do that anymore. As Cassie and I used to get way more in depth on reality show opinions. Mm-hmm. And of course they casted these psychos. Yeah. It's good ratings. Mm-hmm. And I'm disagreeing with how they're approaching things. Duh. Yeah. I would never be on one of these shows because I'm too logical. Mm-hmm. But then after highlighting, dude, Cass, this doesn't even matter. This is the silliest thing in the world, and we're literally upset at each other because of a TV show that was recorded in 2018 or whatever. They're we don't do that anymore. We don't really argue about actually we'll share thoughts. Obviously, I talk too much when we watch shows and movies to not do that. But it's just that recognition of how silly something actually is.
How did you guys rekindle? I'm gonna leave the rekindle part private just for our sake, but we rekindled in a
serendipitous way.
Yeah, it was a way that it could have only happened that way because of one reason, and I'm going to call that God, and that's it.
Fair.
I'm going to leave that there. But just broke up with my boyfriend because our love languages weren't the same. Don't know if that was right.
So love languages are interesting because I think people want to identify with just one of them, and they're just different. If we have 5 love languages throughout different seasons, different love languages take different shapes. There are times where Cassie is acts of service are huge for her, and some of that is because she has to watch the 3 girls all day, and it's not fun, you know. And there's so much work there, and even doing the dishes or having something clean or wiping something up, just noticing those things. Sometimes that goes real far. There are other times where it's not so much helping her carry the load, and the impact isn't oh my gosh, thank you, because I'm exhausted. And in those seasons, that might be number 3 on the list. And there's quality time together where it's hey, coupling season. Let's be intentional about some cuddling and stuff, or touch, physical touch, giving her a massage while she's doing the dishes instead of taking over the dishes, because it might not be this huge weight for her, but a nice affirmation, a touch, So we don't necessarily have to identify with our zodiac and their zodiac and go to the horoscope and say we don't get along because I'm a Leo and you're Aries or whatever. It's we also it goes back to that human nature of confirming or affirming what we believe in. If we think acts of service is our love language, and there are times where it's not, but we want to say that's what it if your partner says, what do you need, and we're answering in a way where we're forcing the acts of service, then it's not going to hit home in a love way like it needs to, because it might be, hey, can you just cuddle with me right now? And that might be the fulfillment.
Well, and sometimes it's you have your 5 cups of your love languages. She has her 5 cups, whatever. Sometimes my cups are going to be filled. Yeah. Sometimes they're not. Yeah. Sometimes her cups will be filled. Sometimes they're not. My job is to fill those cups.
When you can. I can. And trying to recognize that too. And there's a learning curve to recognizing it. So I think let's overthink some of the guilt. Why she would feel guilty on breaking up with her boyfriend, because that might come from, are you being narrow-minded in something? Are you stretching something to fit a narrative that is maybe you just have wanted to find a reason to break up with them? And that's perfectly fine too. If you're just not jiving with somebody, that's okay. I mean, feelings are hard to hurt, and it sucks when we hurt people's feelings, but that happens. There might be some guilt from we didn't give it a shot. I broke up with him because our love languages didn't align. Is different than I broke up with him because we couldn't fix our issues with our love languages. Like if you try to fix it, the guilt might be from not trying to fix that, or realizing like, is that just kind of an excuse? Is that a weird reason to do it? And depending on how long the relationship was, there's also an element of like comfort, like going back into that comfort zone of it might be toxic, but you're so used to having them around that it's weird, or you're used to having somebody around, and that might go deeper into when you're dating again or something and you have somebody around and they're not being toxic. You might be uncomfortable with having somebody around who's not talking down to you just because you're so familiar with that. And so like now you're finding all these reasons to like our love languages don't align or whatever it is, where it's like maybe there's more depth to that. Or maybe you just feel sad that they're sad. They were really into you. You weren't as much into them. It just doesn't, like, it sucks to be the more mature one. I don't necessarily know what that's like.
Yeah.
But it's like, I imagine it sucks to be of a higher maturity, and the person who has to suffer along with you the consequences of the decision of the breakup can't comprehend the decision at the same level of maturity. And that's something you can't force somebody to level up like that or to embrace that. And there's a sense of like, dang, they don't fully understand where I'm coming from. I feel bad about that because maybe they think that it's not warranted because of a part that they can't understand.
That's good.
So you might just have a good heart and feel bad.
She said, so how do you compromise in this sense without changing yours or your partner's character? Sometimes change is good though. That's the thing though, is that's something that you two come together, you talk about, you recognize, hey, maybe I need you to change the way that you're saying something to me.
Yeah.
Or maybe, hey, would you just hang up your clothes when I lay them out for you? Like that's where that communication comes in. And you compromise because you love them. That's where it is. Sometimes you don't want to change something, but if it's for the betterment and it's making them more happy, and it's not something that's going to like destroy you on the inside, change it. Or at least bend it a little bit, you know?
Yeah, sometimes change or compromise comes in the expectations. Like if we have a conversation like, hey, my love language is acts of service. It would mean a lot to me if you could have some acts, do some things. You're not necessarily changing their character, but like changing focus is valuable. Like when Cass explained to me, it bothered her when I said, hey, what can I do to help? There are times where she's like, look around, look and do the things that need to be done. Like you don't even have to ask me, which I took a certain type of way the first time. And then I was like, oh, she's so right. Why waste the time acts of service, look for things. Okay, you start noticing the things that like, this could be wiped down. This, and then you start noticing all of the things that they do because you kind of are helping. And so there's some of that. My character hasn't changed. My attention just changed. But if she told me that was her love language, and she expected that for the rest of the life to like now if she's focusing on noticing all the acts of service that I don't notice or have skipped over or didn't do, now it's just highlighting more of like, no, our love languages don't lie. Like there has to be grace. Like you have to give them opportunity to learn, you have to give them and
acknowledgement.
Acknowledge it. Like when it first happens, there's like I want to keep it going when it's like, hey, thanks for doing the dishes. Hey, and I don't need it every time. You don't have to do it every time, but enough to like where it's unspoken. Like I know you appreciated that I did the dishes, and it's unspoken in the sense of that. Hey, what's wrong? Vibe isn't there anymore because there aren't things that are so much wrong, and like the straw that broke the camel's back is now relieved. Like there's not that anymore. And so it's not always changing the character. Sometimes it's just changing that, but also on our side when we're requesting that, we have to have grace and understanding that they're not going to bat 1,000, especially when they just learned about this yesterday. There's going to be some hand holding. There's going to be some opportunity to show them what that actually looks like. Acts of service to me might be different than acts of service to you. Me wiping a counter might be so insignificant to her that she's like, you didn't go out of your way to like do anything, you know. But it could be like, you thought of me and you did that. Same thing, completely different interpretations. And then just also, if you're gonna go as far as to base the relationships, like continued existence, on love languages, like you really do need to be an expert in what I say expert. Like you need to intimately know yourself to the degree that you feel comfortable saying, this is my top 3. This is what I want, these things. And if you're so steadfast in that and it's not right, you're risking a very good relationship. But there's also value in knowing yourself and being steadfast in that.
Grace is something we can get better at. Yeah, we're not very good at that. Giving
Grace is hard to understand because there's an interesting balance between grace and...
We've been going at this.
I know,
I didn't
dude,
even
we probably
realize.
got cut it off soon. Grace and being walked all over.
Yeah.
Like grace is kind of, to me, is accepting like plausibility, like things that like I don't have to understand every situation and I can give the benefit of the doubt. So if something happens, like here at the brokerage, if something happens where you have a bunch of clients and I send out a bunch of emails and it looks like I'm prospecting your clients and you're like, yo, dude, like why are you hollering at my clients? That could be an accident, a toggle switch accident on my behalf. If you come to me and we have that discussion, that we're going to find out that's how it is. But if you sit there and you convince yourself, like back what we were saying with the assumptions, come to assumptions, we affirm them, we believe they're facts, and now you're stewing in this like, dude, what a greedy guy. Like he's trying to take all of my things. But if you can sit there, same scenario, and say, oh, maybe this was an accident. Like, I don't have to understand how the accident happened. I don't have to understand, like, I don't have to go audit and, like, go on this witch hunt of, oh, like, who did me dirty, or find all this evidence to say, yo, you did this on purpose. If I can give the grace, now I'm not, like, stewing in my thoughts, and I'm also, like, on to other things and being productive. It's not taking up more of my time.
Asking and listening instead of asking and telling.
Yeah, like, until I know more information for a fact, I'm going to give majority of the time benefit of the doubt. Now there's times where it's like, man, this happens 12 times. I'm not going to give you much grace.
Yeah.
That's getting walked over.
Yeah.
But accepting that
once or twice and it was
someone ghosted me.
Yeah.
Accepting that maybe it was one of those scenarios where I'll respond later. I forgot to respond.
Yeah.
I was out with my friends, got a little bit more buzzed, forgot to respond. My screen like doesn't turn off when I have it on on purpose. If I'm sitting there and I'm having a conversation across the office and Cassie texts me, it's going to say red.
Yeah.
Her giving me the grace that I might not be at my phone and understanding that that's on, that saves her from 2 hours of like, why aren't you responding? What are you doing? Who are you with? Why is your, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just grace is something I think there should be more education on, and like how to like give grace and be, just like give grace and be graceful and like understanding and accepting those unknowns. Like I don't have to go be a detective guy and find out all of these elements of things to be like, well, this could have happened. Like, dude, don't waste your time.
Yeah, quit writing the story in your head.
Yeah, because we want to fit the narrative that we think is right based off of the assumptions that we believe are facts.
I struggle with that.
I think we all do.
I think it's just something overthinker.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As an overthinker.
Yeah.
But well, appreciate all the comments and questions. I feel like we had a very good conversation today. We just thank you guys for even tuning in. We plan on doing this every Thursday.
This is fun.
8:15 to 9:15. I know we went a little bit over, but I mean, this is exactly what we wanted, and I feel like we had a lot of good talks. I hope
so.
I hope that y'all took something out of this.
I don't want to overthink it.
Yeah.
But hey, if you guys have questions or like post a question or whatever we didn't get to, just message CZ and just we'll try to get to it at some point. That'd be cool to have like a queue of no questions today. Yeah. We'll just whatever.
And I mean, if you have a question that like he said, send it to me next week, next Thursday.
Yeah,
we can hit it or
right now, tomorrow,
or right now, or we can send you a little video of.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah. but overthink it.
Yes.
We'll overthink
good
it
way.
for you so you don't have to overthink it.
Yeah. Think of all the positive possibilities.
But, well, we appreciate you guys. We're still trying to get the camera figured out because right now it only has 20 minutes of record time. We're going to try and post these on YouTube as well, but we'd like a better setup because we're doing this off an iPhone right now. We did get the mics, so hopefully the
I hope it worked.
quality was a lot better. I hope that y'all could hear us well, and we'll see y'all next Thursday. Be sure to follow me. If you want, subscribe. We might end up doing a subscriber-only live thing later down the line, so don't subscribe now. But once we announce that, if you do want to be a part of that, then that'd be different. But yeah, drop a follow. We'll see y'all next week.